All right, so good evening to members of the public that are joining us via the virtual Zoom meeting. Tonight is our welcome to 2021 and our January reorganization meeting. So there are some matter of board business that has to occur that does not typically happen on a general board meeting evening, as a new board is being seated tonight. As such, the board leadership also needs to be revoted on. So when that happens, the meeting gets passed to the board secretary to review the board election results, as well as swear in the new members and then do some board business. There's some procedural requirements that we have at the beginning of a new a new calendar year. So Dr. Russo, as the district board secretary and the assistant superintendent for finance, I'm going to pass the meeting to Dr. Russo to take over the meeting.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone tonight, and I have the call to order that's by the board secretary tonight, which is the oddity. In accordance with the state sunshine law, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending a notice of time, date, location to the extent known. The agenda of this meeting on January 10 of 2020 to the Home News Tribune and the Times. Copies of the notice were also placed in the board office in each of the school districts on January 24 of 2020 and sent to Plainsboro and West Windsor Public Libraries and Plainsboro and West Windsor Township clerks on the 24th of 2020 as well. In addition, on December 22nd of 2020, a notice of the time, date, and location instructions for remote access and making public comment and, to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting were sent to the Home News Tribune, the Times, and posted on the district website, placed in the board office in each of the district schools, and sent to the Plainsboro and West Windsor Public Libraries and the township clerks. Realize I did say 2020 because that happened last year for the notices carrying forward to this meeting. So in order to convene the meeting, this is a reorganization meeting of the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District for the period of January 2021 through January 2022. In accordance with the state sunshine law, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending a notice of the time, date, and location to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting to the Home News Tribune, the Times, and the West Windsor and Plainsboro Public Libraries. Copies of this notice also have been posted in the board office, filed in the Plainsboro and West Windsor's township clerks, placed in each of our schools, and posted on the district website. Okay, the results of the election. So for Ms. Maliga, she had 6,843 votes, or 98.32% of the Plainsboro vote. There were 117 write-ins. Total voting was 6,960 votes. In West Windsor, we had Ms. Krug at 10,636 votes, or 50.68%. And we had Mr. Whitfield at 9,990 votes, or 47.6% of the votes. We had personal choice of 360, and there were a total of 20,986 votes cast. So congratulations. Okay, so now we do the oath of office. So what I'm going to do individually, I'm going to ask you to read the oath of office, which basically says, I do solemnly swear. And that was a handout in your packet, and it was online as well. Do the three successful candidates have their oaths?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we will start with Ms. Maliga. Please read your oath to be a member of the Board of Education.
I, Lloyd Maliga, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state, under the authority of the people, so help me God.
Yes.
I'd continue. I, Lloyd Maliga, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
What I'll ask that you do, that you sign it and then you'll send it in to me. And the fact that I've witnessed this via a publicly advertised remote meeting, I'll sign it and witness it. Thank you. Okay, next we have Ms. Krug. Will you please take the oath?
Sure. I, Dana Krug, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people. I, Dana Krug, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna ask that you sign it, and then since I witnessed it via this advertised remote meeting, I'll witness that. Okay, Mr. Whitfield, you're next up.
I, Martin Whitfield, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, Martin Whitfield, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I ask you too that you sign it, send it in to me, and I will witness it. Okay, we're going to catch your breath for a second. All right. So the next, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for President of the Board of Education.
Chris, Dr. Russo, I'd like to nominate Michelle Case for President, Board of Education President, please.
Okay, any second?
Second.
Yep, sounds good, thanks. Okay.
Sorry, under the bylaw, we don't need a second.
Understood. I figured I would just, make sure.
Yep.
I was used to opening the floor, having a yes, a first and second, open the floor, and then nominate, then close the floor. However, okay, so we have Ms. Case as a candidate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call a roll call vote, and you can say in the affirmative, meaning yes, aye, or nay or no, and for the negative. And I'm not going to let you abstain. I'll pull you through the screen. Okay, so we'll start with Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
And Ms. Case.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Congratulations. At this point, I turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Before we move forward on the business of the meeting of the reorg, I just want to thank my board colleagues for entrusting me with the honor of another year as board president. I appreciate that. At this time, we're going to take nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Rachel Juliana. Did you hear me?
Yes. Are there? I'm sorry, I forgot. We only do these meetings once a year. Yes. Are there any other nominations? Okay, then we'll close that. So, Dr. Russo, thank you.
Remember, aye in the affirmative and nay or no for the negative. Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Sorry, I should have waited. Sorry.
That's okay.
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
Yes.
and Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
Congratulations, Rachel.
Congratulations.
So one of the other things that we need to do when the board reorganizes at the beginning of a new calendar year is we need to vote to basically continue the business of the school district. And so on our agenda, that represents Roman numerals 7 through 34. Can I please get a motion on that? Martin and Tony. Are there any questions or comments about those items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Next up is Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
and Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
And that will close our reorganizational meeting. And now we can go to our regularly scheduled board meeting. So I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. I'd like to congratulate Martin and Dana on their reelection, and I'd like to welcome Loy. And now I will turn it over to the superintendent for his comments.
Thank you, Ms. Case. Again, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Happy New Year to 2021, and tremendous thanks and appreciation for our community and to our teachers, our staff, our administration for all that they're doing in support and service of our students. Also want to just say thank you and congratulations to Dana Krug on the appointment of her 4th term on the Board of Education. Martin Whitfield on his 2nd term, and to welcome Loy to the Board of Ed. And at the last meeting, I didn't have a chance to say thank you to Isaac, and Isaac spent 6 years serving this school community, and I just want to say thank you to Isaac for his service, and it's been fun to watch Isaac grow as a member of the board, and we wish him well in his next ventures. With respect to January, it happens to be School Board Recognition Month. And so in traditionally in January in an in-person meeting, we would just pause to pay our respects to the Board of Education and thank them for their dedicated service. And you can only imagine the thankless number of hours that the Board of Education spends on almost every Tuesday evening for some form of committee or board meeting, time reviewing the information and materials that are provided by the administration, communications and counsel and phone calls with the administration to provide guidance and feedback on members, feedback from the community, representation at events throughout, attending PTA and PTSA events, attending virtual events now, and just a tremendous amount of time. And I know I've been tremendously grateful to this Board of Education, especially in this past year, as we've had to make some very difficult decisions as a school community. And I have leaned on this Board of Education for guidance and feedback as we've had to navigate some very difficult decisions. So again, my thanks and appreciation to all of you for the work that you do for the school community. So thank you to the board. With respect to just some district business and things that are going on, in the month of January, families will notice that screen-free evening or afternoons have moved from Wednesday to Tuesdays, and we have announced that screen-free days will go from Tuesdays to Thursdays in February. We've been asked a little bit of clarification on why we moved the days, and a lot of it has to do with the rotational schedules or the schedules that impact to special area classes and afternoon classrooms, primarily at the elementary, but quite frankly, it impacts the ABCD schedule at the middle school, and it impacts special areas. It impacts supports like OTPT speech, ESL services. It can impact counseling support, group sessions. It can impact PRISM. So it disproportionately impacts one class 1 day a week if you leave it there across the district. So we have made the decision to move it on a day per month. We recognize that that may present some logistical challenges to families, and we apologize for that. There are some logistical challenges on the district side that we're trying to navigate across the 9,300 plus families and the impact to instructional programs. So we appreciate the efforts and the extra efforts that families have to take to work with us through this. And as with respect to our return to school, as of today, our full intention is to return on January 19th. It's the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday. So we will intend to return on that day. It's our full intention, just like we said that we will return 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, and we work to come back. This time is, a time that we will be monitoring closely as we're coming off of the post-winter break, post-New Year's Eve, potential gatherings of families, and not just WWP, but across the state. So we'll be tracking trend data. We did see back into the 5,500 number today with respect to COVID positives in New Jersey. So it's something that we're just very cognizant of. We'll be monitoring, but I've been very proud of our staff, our students, our community for the way and the adherence to the protocols. And I think we have shown as a district that you do follow good protocols, you do honor the quarantine protocols, you do make sure that you're notifying should there be symptoms, that you're notifying and honoring the process if you're traveling, that we're able to maintain and keep schools open. It's our full intention to do that. There are students and there's individual programs that benefit greatly from keeping in-person instruction moving forward. And again, it's in our belief that we need to prioritize that above all else. So we will be working to support, second half of the year now brings a turn towards, as much as it's January, we look towards June as well. And we've been very much planning for our budget. We've been very much planning for how we're going to support and honor our students through the school year, whether it's step-up ceremonies in elementary grades, whether it's end-of-year activities at the middle school and the high school. So we are looking at all different options as we think through what the next 6 months looks like, and we're doing some forward planning. Really, we've been talking about it in late fall, early winter, and now we'll start with some more serious discussions in January, February to try to lock in some potential process. Clearly, the big thing that we need to keep in mind is we just don't know what's going to happen with trend data with respect to COVID. And I know everyone's very optimistic of a plethora of vaccines, but what we need to be very mindful of is we have no idea the rollout period with respect to when our staff will be vaccinated, let alone the adults in the school community, let alone the students, as there's limited clinical trials regarding children and under 16. So we just don't know yet. And we also don't know the potential impact of continued transmission. So we're going to have a whole range of options available to us to try to make sure that we have processes should we have to pivot. Can we have an in-person graduation? Does it have to be a virtual graduation? Do we need to do a video-based graduation? We're going to have a whole range of options available to us with some ability to think ahead this year a little bit different. But I don't think we can go into this with one set plan. We're going to have a couple different options and be ready to move. And I do recognize that does mean that there's going to be a lot of uncertainty for our students. I lived through this as a father of a graduate of 2020 last year. I'm very cognizant of what this feels like from a parenting perspective. And so I want us to just know that I want the community to know that the district is aware, cognizant, and actively thinking about this work. And buildings will be working with their student leaders. We'll be working with the class advisors as we move forward. So Ms. Case, that's my update at this point for our community.
Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. Now it's time for us to hear from our students. Tonight we'll begin with our representative from High School South.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Sakis Subramanian. I'm the DOE rep for High School South. I hope everybody had a great winter break, and I'd like to wish everybody a happy new year. Since the last board meeting, we had our South-themed Wheel of Fortune competition the Tuesday before winter break. It was a great event with teachers and students from all classes competing. It was a very competitive affair with the sophomores taking the win. In lieu of student council's typical holiday Secret Santa, which couldn't be held due to COVID guidelines, we elected to donate the money to a good cause. We were able to raise $300 for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. In terms of current events relevant to all students, the offices is now accepting applications for new student-run clubs for next year at this time. This time of year is always somewhat of a slow news period in student council. So that brings us to the end of my remarks, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from our students from High School North.
Hi everyone, good evening, and I hope you all had a nice winter break and happy holidays, of course. And unfortunately, because of this nice winter break that we had, I don't have any really big school-wide events that I want to talk about, but I did want to highlight some student achievements that happened recently. So first of all, our Student Council Executive Board Vice President Kirti Chigurapati was recently named the president or the vice president of the NJSC, which is a statewide student council organization. And if that isn't impressive enough by itself, she also ended up running unopposed, which is just super spectacular, and we're really excited for her. And we're excited to see another year of WWP representation within the organization. And then second of all, Henry Shao, who's a junior this year, was published in the New York Times the first time in 2019 regarding his article about the New York Penn Station. And then he was published once more recently. He published a mentor article where he wrote about the process of him writing the article from 2019. So that's something that's really cool, and really excited to see students from North going above and beyond. That's all for me. I'm going to hand it over to Eddie, and he's going to finish up North's updates.
Good evening, everybody, and I'm so excited to be here once again. I hope everybody also had a wonderful winter break. I first wanted to talk about a recent Class of 2022 event. So the North and South Class of 2022 held a successful joint event called Quiplash on December 23rd, the last day before winter break. In this virtual event, groups of around 6 to 8 students competed against one another to determine who was the funniest person in the group. Regarding a recent Spirit Week, the High School North staff members held a staff holiday Spirit Week the week before winter break, lasting from the dates of December 17th to December 23rd. The themes for the Spirit Week were as follows. On December 17th, the theme was Hey North, it's cold outside, and staff bundled up in their favorite holiday gear. On December 18th, the theme was Deck the Halls, in which staff wore Knight's holiday apparel or holiday sweaters. On December 21st, the theme was Candyland, and staff dressed up as candy cane by wearing the colors red and white. On December 22nd, the theme was Jingle Bell Rock, in which staff wore their best holiday bling, so outfits ranged from ones with lights, bells, and more exciting outfits. The final day of the staff holiday Spirit Week took place on December 23rd, in which the theme was Silent Night and staff wore their favorite holiday PJs. And that's it for High School North's updates. Thank you so much for having me here once again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you to all our students for their updates. We appreciate them. Tonight we have something that we're obligated to do every year. As members of the Board of Education, we are bound by a code of ethics, and annually we get an ethics training. And so for that, I will turn it over to our board attorney, Mr. Mark Toscano.
Thank you, Madam President. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to load up the presentation so everyone can see. All right. Just to make sure I did this correctly. Can everybody see the presentation? Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Okay. Just as a quick disclaimer, as riveting as this presentation will be and as informative as it will be, it does not take the place of the individualized training that all board members must undertake in order to fulfill their ethics requirement. This is not an individual ethics requirement. This is the requirement for the body itself, because annually we have to have a discussion on the School Ethics Act, so that this satisfies that requirement on the board's behalf. Just very quickly, the board is the governing body of the school district. The board is charged with high-level policy-making decisions. It is the only entity in the district that can enter into contracts or other binding agreements. Its decision-making authority is limited. When board members are not in a public meeting together, no member has any authority. It is only when we are all together in an officially advertised public meeting. The board and the superintendent enjoy a symbiotic relationship. The vast majority of the actions that the board takes requires the recommendation of the superintendent. Same way, the superintendent's actions, he makes the recommendation to the board, and the board is the official body that acts on those actions. So the two work hand in hand together. And both the board and the superintendent and other administrators are governed by the New Jersey Code of Ethics. So the Code of Ethics are really 10 tenets that set forth guidelines and responsibilities for individual members. What I have done in each one of the slides is, as I usually always tell you guys, I'm not going to read them to you. I summarize them, and then I give you evidence of what the School Ethics Commission, which is the body that enforces the Code of Ethics, would find to be a violation. So the first one is kind of the easiest one, is uphold all the laws. The board cannot act contrary to the statutes and the regulations promulgated in the state of New Jersey. Some examples, there was a case a couple of years ago where a board member was found to have violated this provision of the code when he alone acted outside the board and directed that a rice notice be issued. A rice notice, just very quickly, is a written notice that is given to employees to let them know that the board intends to either discuss or take action as it relates to their employment. Another example was a case where the president of the board violated this provision where he took it upon himself to contact somebody who the superintendent had recommended, and the board had voted to hire at a meeting, to tell them that no, even though we voted yes, your appointment is void because I and I alone had told the superintendent not to recommend you. That's not how this works. So that member was found to be in violation of this provision. The second provision, it's why you're here. You're here for the educational welfare of all children, and you'll seek to maintain the public schools that meet the needs of all children, regardless of ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. Some examples of how this has been violated. This is a recent case from just this past year. A staff member who was recommended for non-renewal filed an ethics complaint against a board member because the board president, had a child in the teacher's classroom. And even though you are board members, if you have children, you are still parents. And you do not surrender your rights as parents just because you are on the Board of Education. So there is a point where you have a board hat when we're all together here, and you have a parent hat. Just because you're on the board doesn't mean you don't get to participate in parent-teacher conferences. Does not mean that you are not able to take action if there's something going on with your child. There's some process issues or procedural issues, and if there's any questions in that regard, I'm more than happy to help guide you through that. But this was an instance where the board president raised some concerns about the conduct of the teacher during the school year, had filed an HIB complaint on behalf of their child against the teacher. The teacher was ultimately non-renewed. And the teacher took the position that, well, I was non-renewed because the board president had a vendetta against me, and therefore they're not here in the educational interest of the students. That was knocked out because any non-renewal process involves recommendation of the superintendent. The superintendent is the one that renews and non-renews, not the Board of Education. Another case from this past year, somebody made an allegation that the board president in another district violated the act because they made a statement during a public meeting, a virtual public meeting, lambasting, and that was the word used in the case itself, a number of district parents by name who had been very critical of the Board of Education and actions that the board had taken in response to the pandemic and in response to the shutdown this past spring. Some members of the public didn't like that and made an allegation that the president was again board vice president, was acting in a vendetta because they called out people by name and because the meeting was beamed into the homes of children where children could see it. So it wasn't in the educational welfare. That was also dismissed. This is a big one. We're going to get into the real meat of what your role as a board member is. Your role is limited to policy planning and appraisal. And you frame policies and plans only after you have consulted those who will be affected by them. You'll see kind of a theme with this. You'll hear me go, policy planning appraisal. That is the role of a board member. For instance, when a board member exceeded that role, a board member a couple of years ago, a school district had an opening for an assistant superintendent. The board member decided, hey, I'm going to go on a site visit. I'm going to go observe this assistant superintendent candidate in the district where they are currently working. That's exceeding the role of a board member. That's not policy planning and appraisal. Volunteering. Volunteering has been a hot, well, let me back up, was a hot button issue for a number of years. Thankfully, the commission has walked back a number of the restrictions that it put on board members volunteering in the schools. You guys volunteer, you are elected, you don't get paid to do this. You're here because you are active in the schools, you're active in your communities, and you should not be prohibited by that because you have decided to extend that volunteering to now serving on this body. So the Ethics Commission has set some clear rules and limitations for volunteering. I've got a whole bunch of slides kind of on that a little later, but the good part is that they have completely walked back the prohibition that they put down a number of years ago on board members volunteering or being involved within the schools themselves. So that is no longer the case. So another way a board member has violated this provision. A board member violated when they participate in discussions to develop criteria for use of a consulting firm in the search for the next superintendent. So again, that's taking it one step further than policy planning and appraisal. Sticking with that policy planning and appraisal role, board members carry out their responsibility not to administer the schools, but to see that they are well run. Okay? This is where you see the vast majority of cases, because you see allegations that board members have overstepped. Here's an example. A community member who had a child on a high school baseball team took issue with the fact that a board member who had raised complaints and concerns with how this community member was conducting themselves at high school baseball games, then got elected to the Board of Education, was then placed on the policy committee, and then proceeded to amend the policy dealing with removing people at board events, school events, who are disruptive. That's not micromanaging. The board's actual role is policy planning and appraisal. Had the member taken action to walk over and tell the disruptive community member to leave, that would have been micromanaging. That is not the role of the board member. This board member proceeded correctly in terms of working through the policy that the district had and working to effectuate change. Here's an instance where somebody did violate it. A board member instructed the superintendent not to allow a graduating senior to participate in the graduation ceremonies when the superintendent had ruled that the child would not participate. So you see, that's micromanaging. That's getting into the day-to-day affairs of the district. The very, very simple rule is board members don't give directives. Board members can request information, and those requests go to either Dr. Adderhold as the superintendent, Dr. Russo as the assistant superintendent for business administration, or one of the other assistant superintendents that are designated by either Dr. Adderhold or Dr. Russo. So board members should not be giving directives and cannot give directives to individual employees. For keeping along, as I told you, this is always where you see a lot of violations. You had a board member not happy with how things were being run in the middle school, so he decided to take a site visit, took windows, took pictures of open windows because he was complaining about the air conditioning, because he felt they lived in a barn, out everything went. Wasn't happy with what was in the board office bathroom, and then proceeded to hold a press conference outside of the building. So again, that's micromanaging. This comes up a lot, and exit interviews are, this next one comes up a lot. Exit interviews are very popular in the private sector, and sometimes board members come on and say, hey, you know, we had a building principal, or we had a vice principal or a teacher that was very, very popular leave. We should know why. We want to conduct exit interviews. We have that responsibility. No, you don't. Board members would violate, that would be considered micromanaging if you were to conduct exit interviews or be involved in those types of discussions. So this is kind of clarifying, again, policy planning and appraisal, the role. The fifth one, kind of recognizing you can't act on your own. You recognize that authority rests with the board as a whole when we are together, and you don't make personal promises or take private action that could compromise the board. Some of these are kind of entertaining. A couple of board members were down in Long Beach Island. They were having some fun, and they proceeded to run into somebody who they liked, found out they were in education, and proceeded to offer them the position of assistant superintendent. That's making promises and in violation of the oath. This next one was a recent case, just came out this year. There was an allegation that board members had made private promises because a committee of the board, including the board president and the vice president, had entered into negotiations with the superintendent for a new employment contract. That employment contract was then reviewed and discussed with the majority of the board, and then sent to the executive county superintendent. Now notice I said the majority of the board. It was not shared with a couple, 2 or 3 members of the board who were steadfast no's. And so the first time they saw the proposed amended new contract for the superintendent was when it was placed up for a vote. The commission found that that was not a violation of the School Ethics Act because the board members were acting within their authority and they were acting appropriately, even though it may have ostracized a minority members of the board. Oh, this one's a fun one. This one came out it's got an 18 number, but it came out around December of last year. This was a board member who was stopped at a traffic stop, proceeded to identify herself as a board member, and then proceeded to go on a tirade to the police officer and indicating that she hated cops because they hurt Black people. As said that the request for her license and registration was a expletive insult, threatened to make a call to the council president, who she claimed was a personal friend, and afterward threw the ticket back at the officer and said, "I will have your hide and your skinhead chief cop too." The township administrator was so alarmed by the board member's conduct when it was reported that a memo was sent to the board president, basically alerting them ethics complaint was filed, and that basically the commission was very clear: just because you're a board member does not get you out of tickets. It is not weight to be thrown around either to police officers or to staff members. This case has also kind of been extended, that you don't walk into a school and say, "I'm a board member, I'm here, I want X, Y, Z." That's, again, exceeding that role. Number 6, I refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest groups or partisan groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or the gain of friends. This usually comes up in terms of friends of friends getting hired or contracts being awarded. Here, there was an allegation that this was a little convoluted. It was a case last year. The complainant made an allegation and did not like the fact that the board entered into a shared services agreement with the local municipal government for the sharing of police services, snow plowing, garbage and recycling collections, very run-of-the-mill things. Why did the community member think this was for the personal gain of a board member? well, one of the board members' wives was an administrative assistant, not in any of these departments, but just worked for the municipality. That did not result in any personal gain to the board member just because the board was entering into a contract with the municipality. Board members are permitted, this has kind of come up more and more, especially with the move of the elections to November. Board members are permitted to endorse candidates for the election. Just because you are on the board does not mean you are not allowed to be political creatures, whether that means elections for the Board of Education, that could include town council, that could include Congress, state office, governor. You are not prohibited from engaging in that process. However, if you are making an endorsement, there's a process and some procedures to make sure you clarify that you are not speaking for the board, you are speaking for yourself. So you just, if you are doing stuff like this, you should clarify, and I can certainly help with that. No personal gains also extend usually to conflicts, and we'll get into conflicts a little later. What are generally conflicts? Conflicts usually arise when you have someone who is related to you working within the school district where you are serving as a board member. So if you have a relative or immediate family member, and again, those terms are legally defined, and we'll go through that, working within the school district where you are serving as a board member, there's certain actions you can't take. One of those actions is dealing with anybody who supervises your relative and anybody who supervises that person and that person, all the way up the chain of command, up to the superintendent who supervises everybody in the entire school district. You know, one instance where there was found personal gain, someone ran for a board of ed because they were angry with the superintendent because they had been employed by the district. They were terminated. They had filed ethics charges against the superintendent. And then as soon as they got on the board, called for a vote of no confidence. That was very clearly somebody seeking to use their office for personal gain, in this case, vendetta. You probably could also have found that to be a violation of the requirement that you are there for the educational benefit of students. Number 7, I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the board, which if disclosed would needlessly injure individuals, and all other matters I will provide accurate information and interpret it correctly to the community. Okay, this has been a big one lately. This one deals with keeping all matters confidential. As board members, you will be privy to information that is not for public consumption. It relates to staff matters, student matters, legal matters. You know, there was a case a couple of years ago where a board member was censured for responding to and having social media conversations about a student discipline incident involving a high school student. The message identified the student's school, grade level, gender, and specific details about the incident and the length of suspension that was imposed. All of that confidential information that cannot and should not be shared. Just last year, kind of reinforcing how serious the commission is taking these, a board member was reprimanded because they were engaging in a back and forth with a community member. A community member who was also a teacher in the school district had raised concerns about certain safety issues that they felt were not being addressed. The board met in executive session, discussed the members' concerns. Following the meeting, the board president sent an email to the community member providing a response. The community member responded, not happy with the outcome. And again, all board members were copied on these emails. And then one board member decides to hit the dreaded reply all button and inadvertently copied the community member and disclosed exactly what was discussed in executive session and disclosed everything that had transpired and all the deliberations. The Ethics Commission, citing the first case with the social media posts that I had talked about, wanted to censure the individual, but drew a distinction because One, they found that unlike the first case where the reposting of the information was intentional and then rebroadcasted, in this instance, it was unintentional. The member knew that the information was confidential and in fact referenced it as being confidential in the email back, and it wasn't rebroadcasted. The simple lesson to take from this is, number one, don't hit reply all, because not only could that lead to an ethics problem and an inadvertent disclosure, but it could also violate the Open Public Meetings Act, where boards of education are not to have discussions pertaining to board business outside of a regular public meeting. Number 8, I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the superintendent. Okay, that does not mean it's a blank check. The Board of Education is, and I said at the outset, in a symbiotic relationship with the superintendent, and the superintendent recommends, and the board either votes yes or no. But the board must consider the recommendation and only dismiss those that are arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. Basically, there's no rational basis. Same time, it's not a blank check. This was one this past year. The next one that came up was one where a board member was found not to have violated the act because this is entertaining. There was a former board member who was no longer on the board. Their spouse, who always had gone by their maiden name, was recommended for a position in the district. One of the board members knew who the person was, and the allegation was that the board member violated this ethics provision because they did not disclose to the entire board that this person who was on the agenda was the spouse of a former board member. That was found not to be a violation. There was nothing wrong with that. It's the superintendent who makes the recommendation and the board that hires. This is a big one. We'll get into it a little later. It is the superintendent who interviews, who recommends, and the board that votes. Outside of the position of superintendent, the board members are not to have any role in the selecting of candidates or interviewing of candidates for positions. And the Ethics Commission has been very, very clear on that and has clarified it even more over the last couple of years. Number 9, I will support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. So what this is we do not act to undermine staff. The first case, a board member was found to violate this provision when during a private conversation during a board meeting, he asked a member of the public that if the superintendent position opened up, would that person who was a current employee be interested in the job? There was no position to fill. There was a sitting superintendent, and that person was also, as I said before, an employee of the district, so they were the superintendent's subordinate. That's a violation of the Ethics Act. In particular, it's not supporting the existing superintendent because it was actively undermining them. Another instance where this was found to have been violated, a board member violated this provision when they sent an email to the superintendent, copying the business administrator and every other board member that was threatening, intimidating, and demanding an accounting for the superintendent's personal leave, where they were on certain days. Again, superintendent works with the board, but is also considered an employee of the district. So that falls within the caveat that the board must support the superintendent in the proper fulfillment of their responsibilities. The next one is an instance that the dangers of social media. After a particularly heated board meeting, the president of the board did not like that the superintendent did not do what they wanted, went home to their Facebook, linked a picture to the superintendent, and publicly posted, "Now if we could only do something about the local terrorists that destroy dreams and burn futures." Obviously not supporting school district personnel. The next one was an interesting case that was brought by a local association. They were not happy. The local teaching association was engaged in a pretty nasty contract negotiation. We've not had those issues here in WWP. We have very good relations with all of our associations. But they were not happy that the superintendent and the board members decided to allow a parent of a special ed student to visit the classroom without first consulting the classroom teachers. That was not a violation of the Ethics Act, because it's required under special ed law that a parent, if you're proposing a program to a student, a parent has a right to view the program, and whether the staff member wants to or not, it's really of no consequence. Number 10, I will refer all complaints to the superintendent and act on complaints at the public meetings only after failure of administrative solutions. Basically go through the proper chain of command or the proper channels. Like I said, board members should not be in contact with principals or assistant principals with complaints that they get in the supermarket or in the Target or in any of the, well, when we can go back to those places, the local stores. If you get a complaint, you're supposed to refer it to the superintendent. Again, the same thing, you also don't get to withhold information from the superintendent because you don't like how they are going to act. So the simple rule is the administration of the school is done by the administration. And if you get a complaint, you pass it along and they will address it. If it's not addressed, then it works through the proper channels and then it will come to the Board of Education. So very quickly, in terms of, I talked about conflict. Who you have working in a district, and that may limit the role that you are able to play as a board member. We, of course, in New Jersey have to have multiple rules and regulations. The two rules that govern this is the School Ethics Act, which is the left-hand column, and the nepotism regulations, which were passed in 2008 in the right-hand column. Of course, they have to use the exact same terms and define them differently. Which just makes it all the more fun. So that's why I put together this chart. Part of my role as board counsel, I will sit with each one of you and we go through whether you have any relatives or immediate family members as they are defined in this chart, and we determine what, if any, conflicts you may have, and then I can advise you as to what actions you can and cannot do and what things you can and cannot be a part of. But this is like a reference slide for you can kind of see how everyone falls. And I would ask each one of you to look at this chart and to see if you have anybody that falls within here that works either in WWP or in another public school district within the state of New Jersey, so that we can have a conversation on that. Why do we have to go towards the other school districts? Because there are certain rules, and it really centers on involvement in negotiations. So for instance, a board member who they themselves is a member of a statewide teachers union, whether that's NJPSA, NJEA, NEA, they work in another school district, they're not allowed to participate in negotiations until the negotiations process is almost completed. If you have an immediate family member that is in the district, you can't participate in, among other things, any aspect of negotiations with the local associations. If you have a relative in the district, same thing, you can't participate in negotiations. If you have someone that's considered a relative, and again, the chart defines what a relative is, the analysis is a little more complicated. I know I kind of went by that, but I kind of summarize it here in a chart for you because I can't handle some of those. I'm a visual learner. So if you have an immediate family member that works in the district where you're a board member, you're conflicted. You can't be a part of negotiations. If you have an immediate family member that works out of district, again, you're conflicted. You can't be involved, and so on. So I'll sit with each one. I always ask board members, if you have anybody that falls within this, I have a questionnaire that I can give out. I'll get that to Dr. Adderhold. We'll disseminate that. It's also good for returning board members, just in case anything has changed from last year, just so I'm aware and can guide you appropriately. Staffing companies have become more and more popular, especially now when we have such a sub shortage across the state. The key is, if you have a relative or immediate family member that works for one of these staffing companies, that is not a conflict. That is okay. It is okay for the staffing company to do business with the Board of Ed, and it does not conflict the member from involvement in decisions within the district itself. The same is not said, though, is if the district hires its own subs. A lot of times, WWP as well, we hire long-term subs if we have a long-term vacancy. If that would conflict a board member, and again, that's something we can sit and go through. If you are a member of a non-traditional education union, what am I talking about? I'm talking you maybe the AFL-CIO, CWA, or Teamsters. Again, that does not prohibit you from being involved in certain aspects of board business. So that does not knock you out of the box. The doctrine of necessity, if you go to trainings, this is a hot topic. I don't know why. In the last couple of years, the Ethics Commission has been all about this. Their advisory opinions, they've issued 6 or 7 just dealing with the doctrine. All it is something that we invoke when we have so many people conflicted that we can't conduct business. We have never invoked that here at WWP since I've been here. I do not see any reason why we would have to in the upcoming year. So if you hear about it, this is what it is, because again, you'll hear about it at the trainings, because this is a hot item. I noted before that the Ethics Commission continues to push that board members are not to have any role in the interview process. They've made it clear that they don't support board members conducting any interviews for positions below the superintendent. If the board has a personnel committee, board members may attend with the permission of the superintendent, but are not allowed to ask questions. Really, they don't want board members involved in the interview process. And I kind of lay out the analysis and why they did what they did. Volunteering. As I said before, this is a big one because, again, you are all volunteers. The Ethics Commission in 2014, 15, 16 issued a whole bunch of decisions really pushing. They didn't want board members involved, and realized what a mistake they made and had to start to walk them back. They have walked them back pretty well. They basically look at the degree of involvement with staff and students, and they look at how constant that contact is. They don't want board members giving directives to kids. They don't want board members supervising kids or staff. Basically, the rule of thumb is board members should, if they are volunteering, let the superintendent know that they're volunteering, so that we know why you're there, what's going on, and that we can give you the proper guidance to make sure that you don't run afoul. It's all fact specific. There have been rundowns and decisions that have outlined what is permissible. Like, for example, being the PTA president, that's fine. Being a classroom parent, that's fine. Coordinating field day, that's fine. They can run through all the gamut. And again, if there's particular concerns, I'm more than happy to share what that guidance is and where they've kind of drawn the line. They've done a really good job in the last 2 or 3 years of helping to clarify this, because again, you guys volunteer, and it's part of the package. As I said before, they don't like volunteers who supervise students on a constant basis. Well, ironically enough, there was a case where a board member was a bus driver for a bus company that drove district students. And even though if you volunteer, that's bad. You're not supposed to supervise kids. The Ethics Commission had no problem with the bus driver supervising district students for the district where he was on the Board of Ed and driving the bus. So it's one of those things that, we can't make heads or tail over. The last thing is, this was a really good issue because it's one that sometimes causes confusion. If you are not happy with, say you are the dissenting vote, you are not happy with action that the board are taking, and I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna act out, I'm gonna file a lawsuit, I'm gonna do XYZ. No, there's no lone wolf. You have your vote. If it doesn't go your way, then we proceed accordingly, and you don't take legal action against the board because you don't get your way. This would be nice in national politics, but it is, I had to throw that in because it just is pertinent. So I apologize if that went long, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that may come up. My phone number and email address is here. I'm a point of reference for everybody. And I congratulate you all and wish you the best of luck in the upcoming year.
Thank you, Mark. Does anybody have any questions for Mark right now?
I just had a question about the volunteering part, because I do volunteer at school. When you say supervise students or like directives, so I'm organizing a committee or something and I have to send a teacher an email to communicate logistics and stuff. Is that considered, in terms of like directing like via email or that sort of communication?
No, the directing, like it actually came out of a case where a board member volunteered to work with the school play and was building sets and was actually directing people in terms of where to put things and directing the kids on how to practice. It's really getting into supervision. Volunteer coaching is another one that they don't want board members doing. They don't want board members serving as, like, say, a volunteer high school soccer coach, where you're running the practice, you're directing the kids, you're telling them what drills to do. That's really where it's getting into with directing. But I'm more than happy to give you, if you'd like a little more information, I'm more than happy to outline that for you.
Sure, I will reach out to you then.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Actually, I have a quick question for Mark. In terms of public endorsements and statements, in social media, when people put things like all opinions are my own, does that kind of cover us for any posts underneath?
Yes. Well, posts underneath, that's not anybody that joins in a comment further down. Those aren't attributable to board members. But if you're making a statement as to a position, it is advisable to clarify that you are speaking for yourself, because you can't speak for the body. The body, when we are, and when by body, I mean the Board of Ed, when we are together, we speak as one voice. When we are outside, there are two people outside of meetings. There are two people that are able to speak for the board, and that is Ms. Skaish and Dr. Adderhold. And I'm pointing where they are on my screen, and just realized that probably it's not where I am on your screen. But those are the folks that are able to make statements on behalf of the board. That's why you always see that I'm speaking for myself and not for the board.
Mm-hmm. And is that specific to each comment, or can something generic be stated in the person's bio?
You mean just putting, like, if you have a Facebook, like, these are my opinions, these are not?
Correct.
All I would say is if you're going to put it in the safest play, the conservative place, to put it in each statement. But if it is going to be in the bio, I would just make sure that it's set so that it's maybe like in the signature line, or it's something that is a constant. So it's very, very clear and can't be taken out of context, because the last thing you would want is somebody kind of pulling something, a statement out of context, and then trying to use that to weaponize it with an ethics complaint.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mark. First opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who have submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this first opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by our board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. So we will begin with the comments for video and audio first.
Very good, Ms. Case. There's 2 individuals signed up. The first individual is Lindsey Mitchell. And I just need to see if Lindsey's in the, I did not see Lindsey, but I see Brad and Robin. So I don't know if Lindsey is signed in under a different name or if I assume they're related. If a member of the board knows differently, they might be able to give me guidance. I'd appreciate it.
Yep.
They're all related.
Yep, that's her parents.
All right.
Yeah.
Seeing Brad at the top. Brad, if I'm going to press the button to allow you to talk, if you confirm that Lindsey's with you, I will then promote you to panelist so she can speak. Brad, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. My daughter is logged in on a different device than I am, though.
Can you tell me if she's logged in at? I can move her over.
What are you logged in?
Under robinmnj@yahoo.com.
Connect the Robin.
I will do that. Thank you. All right. So I believe I heard him say connect Robin. There was feedback. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to promote them to panelists so they can, so Lindsey can appear on the screen. Robin or Lindsey, if you can hear me, you should have received, there you go.
Hi, my name is Lindsey Mitchell, and I'm a hybrid senior, a member of student council, volleyball, and lacrosse at High School North this year. I'm speaking tonight to give you the point of view of a senior who feels forgotten, overwhelmed, and disappointed. When school was shut down in March, I learned for the first time how important it was to actually be with others in school. For this reason, when given the choice, I immediately chose the hybrid option. I chose hybrid because I expected to go to class and be taught by my teacher in person with classmates. Instead, I am now attending classes where I might be the only student present and the teacher is not speaking to me at all, but instead speaking to his or her computer, and I am simply watching them on my screen a few feet away from them. I know my situation is not unique. I have spoken with all my teachers and they have told me that they only have 1-4 students in each class. Combining the hybrid sections for seniors will improve the situation. All of us have had to compromise so much of our senior year with our homecoming traditions changing, no fall sports, we expect no Disney trip or Mr. North, and even prom is up in the air. All we want at this point is to go to school and learn in person with our peers from teachers who are actually speaking to those of us in class. Is adding another 25 to 30 seniors to the number of people in school really going to affect too much? Another thing that really must change is the learning situation in the theater. I'm taking AP Literature and Composition, a very tough course. Now I'm required to take this class virtually, even when I'm in school, in a silent and dark theater with terrible Wi-Fi. Being a student with ADHD, I can tell you this learning environment is nearly impossible to work in. I'm in a dark place with kids all around me, either speaking in their own classes, playing games, or just talking to one another. Obviously, we are all supposed to be paying attention to our Zoom class. In reality, this simply isn't the case. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I only have 2 out of my 8 classes in the theater, but I know kids who signed up for hybrid, wanting in-person teaching, and have now switched to virtual because they had up to 5 classes in the theater. The theater is not a hybrid learning experience. It is simply doing virtual school from inside the building. I feel so bad for so many of my peers who are forced into complete virtual learning because our district couldn't figure out a better way for them to get what they signed up for. At this point, halfway through the year, I feel like no one is paying attention to us, the students. Every day I come home from an in-person week and tell my parents I want to switch to virtual, and frankly, they don't disagree with me. Step by step, I see my senior year being ripped away. You may not think we notice the little things, but we do. For example, in the beginning of every year, the classes are addressed in an assembly talking about the new year and fresh starts, but we haven't even received one email congratulating us on being seniors and at least trying to be excited for us. It's 2021. We graduate in 6 months. I hate comparing us to the class of 2020 because we are having very different experiences. But when their senior year got taken away from them, it seemed teachers and staff were doing everything in their power to keep them motivated and feeling loved. It is very different for the class of 2021, as it seems most people have taken on the mindset, we're all going through it, suck it up. All I ask is for a little more thought and compassion. Being on the student council, we feel like we have no control and no answers. We try to think of socially distant events for the seniors and they either get shot down or told maybe later in the year, but it never happens. I want my class to look back on their last year here at North and smile. We understand that nothing will feel normal, but combining hybrid weeks for seniors like we did one day during the fall for Spirit Week will help, in a small way, to bring something more normal to the year. Remember, we are going to leave this district only having 2.5 years of a real high school experience. Please try a little harder to make sure the students' mental health and experience is something positive, not something they wish they can forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Ms. Case, just give me one moment. All right, the next individual up is Caroline Corvo. And I did not see Caroline, but I see Jess Corvo, and I know that's a parent. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna just check, Jessica, if you're there. I'm gonna ask you that question just to verify. And then once you affirm, I will then promote the panelist, as long as this is accurate, at least. Jessica, if you're there, is Caroline with you? Okay, I'm no longer seeing her in the chat. Is anyone else seeing that? In the panel, in the attendee view?
Just still there, yes.
I think I see it says talking permitted.
Jessica, are you there? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone at this point, Ms. Cage.
Yeah.
Ms. Cuscano? That's unfortunate.
Do you want me to go to the written comments to see if they resurface?
Yeah, maybe we can come back to this.
I'll try it again at the conclusion of the written comments.
Thank you.
I'm going to share screen so the public can see.
Okay. All right. So, Madam Cage, we had a number of written comments for the first public comment period. One second. Sorry, I just got to minimize so I can see, here we go. Okay, the first comment comes from Dorothy Holmes, 19 Wallingford Drive, Princeton. Dear administration and board, good evening. I'm writing to request that you consider allowing interested seniors to attend daily in-school sessions rather than on a hybrid schedule. As many students are opting for an all virtual learning, this frees up slots for those students who want to be in school. Our family has been very cautious during this pandemic. While we know it is the right thing to do, our kids are suffering from a lack of social interaction. My daughter, Maddie, would love nothing more than to see her friends on a regular basis during their last year at High School North. The district has done a great job of ensuring the right protocols are taken to create a safe environment in the buildings. It is for that reason that I would be comfortable allowing my senior to attend every day. So much of the class of 2021's junior and senior year has been stolen from them. From our part, as the adults and decision makers, I hope that when we find opportunities that can safely create some sense of normalcy for them, we do all we can to make it happen. Thank you for your time and consideration, Dorothy Holmes. The next comment comes from Caitlin Chung, 27 Renfield Drive, Princeton. This is a message from several seniors. Teachers should actively listen to students and implement their feedback in the classroom. We know the pandemic has made it difficult for both teachers and students to adjust, but the amount of work that is given has pressured students even more and crushed their mental health. Realistically, the workload could be reduced without impacting the AP timeline. Many teachers are in fact ahead of the AP timeline, and they could slow it down to give more time for students to take care of their families and personal needs. Mental health is often stigmatized and seen as something that is easily solvable through meditation or exercise, but the burden that students deal with in applying to college, getting good grades, and doing their work is not sustainable. We are not in normal times, and teachers should not be teaching the way they normally have. It is their job to create learning environments where every student has the opportunity to succeed, and that success will only come if teachers implement reasonable workloads and grading systems. We understand that the subjects taught are challenging. However, now more than ever, giving exams and putting grades into Genesis should not be a teacher's priority, especially when teachers don't give enough time for students to produce quality work or enough resources to perform well on tests. Teachers can give Google Forms to get students' feedback on the workload, the grading, and the classroom experience, and actively implement change. Teachers have been unaccommodating and have actively refused to help. And I'm sorry, just got to scroll down. Thank you. And actively refuse to help and work with students. At this point, students are no longer upset by the grades. Now they're scared because we aren't learning anything in the subject we're planning to major in because teachers refuse to adjust to virtual learning. On top of having to self-study everything, there have been teachers who have admitted to grade deflation because of the different grading system this year, which is something we want to bring to your attention. We understand that last year the district didn't have the resources or training to implement online teaching, and asking for 95s again is unreasonable. However, on top of an almost full year of isolation, this year's seniors are going through the exact same pain of not seeing our friends, and some even worse, the loss of family members. The seniors are not asking for free grades. We're asking to please consider our mental health and home environment. The next comes from Michelle Jaworski, 26 Brookfield Way, West Windsor. Good evening and Happy New Year. As we approach the second half of the school year, and in light of the relatively smaller percentages of students who participate in the hybrid model, with the district considering allowing the senior hybrid students to attend every week instead of every other week, provided it works from a numbers and safety perspective. It is my understanding that High School North had a senior day a few weeks ago, and I heard from one student that it was the best day of the year so far. Although all of the WWT students have lost the same amount of time when it comes to being in school, I would argue that the current senior class of 2021 has lost and stands to lose more of the significant events and experiences than any of the other classes, even more than the class of 2020. Perhaps being able to attend every day and see their friends would help boost morale and lessen the sting of what they have and will miss out on. Thank you for your consideration. Next comment comes from Christy Dory, 14 Finlanley Lane, West Windsor. I would like to thank the Board of Education for its leadership and guidance throughout the pandemic. I'd like to also wish you all a Happy New Year. I am a parent of a senior at WWP High School North, so we have just 6 more months of class time. Today, I'm writing to respectfully request that the board consider giving seniors the opportunity to return to school. Many students have now moved to virtual. Thankfully, we have a vaccine. Hopefully, all students can return for the 21-22 school year. However, with less students in the building right now, please examine the possibility of seniors attending in person. This would allow them the opportunity to end their education here, having a chance to bond as a graduating class, meet with their teachers, and have some in-person peer interaction before leaving the district. These children are bright, creative, strategic, and smart. I trust they will do all they can to create some enjoyable educational experiences in a safe manner and follow social distancing and safety procedures. I respectfully request you consider this request. Thank you all. And Madam President, that was all of the submitted comments.
Thank you. Should we try and see if we can get that one other video comment?
I was gonna say, I think they're up. So if you can try them again.
Give me when you say they're up, Robin, who did you? Caroline?
There's a hand raised by Jessica Corvo.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
So I'm gonna Jessica, I'm gonna unmute you so you can talk, and then if you're there to speak, I'll promote to panel. Jessica, are you there?
Yes.
Caroline? Okay. Is Caroline with you?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay, Caroline, I'm going to promote you to panelist so you can appear on the screen. So you'll get an invitation.
Okay. Paper speech. Yes. All right, sorry about that. Hello, my name is Caroline Corvo. I am also a senior, and I'm involved in field hockey, lacrosse, the musical, and a proud member of the peer leaders at High School North. I immediately opted to be in the hybrid rotation this school year because, for me personally and many other students who chose hybrid, especially my fellow seniors, I wanted to be in the building, giving me the chance to see teachers and friends face to face and having a sense of some normalcy. Going into the school year, I obviously had different expectations than past years and didn't know what to expect. However, once the school year started and I got into the building, I quickly realized the harsh reality that it was nowhere near what I expected, and sadly not in a good way. However, although different and unexpected, getting up in the morning on the weeks I was in school and being in the building has been very beneficial to both the value of my schoolwork and my mental health. Being at home, it is extremely difficult to stay focused on the tasks in my classes, not only because there are 8 people in my house learning or teaching, but because not needing to get out of my pajamas or my bed and going anywhere makes me extremely unmotivated to do any work, which I know many of my fellow classmates can relate to. It's our senior year. We've all finished the long process of applying for college. It's important that we stay focused and motivated so we don't jeopardize the ability to achieve a higher education and have a bright future. The only way I see this being achievable is by being in the building every day and having a taste of a normal school year. I'm sure a few of you know, but if not, my dad has taught at High School North for 20 plus years. I have been a student at North for 3 plus years, but I grew up at North. I watched my older brother go through North. I watched him go to Disney, have his junior and senior prom, go to watch them, and I sat and watched him walk across that stage and get handed his diploma by our dad, which just made me even more excited for the opportunities and adventures of high school, especially senior year. Growing up running around the halls of North not only ignited the fire of excitement I had to be in high school, but developed a special place in my heart for High School North. All of its teachers, which many of them have known me since I was in diapers, the smell of the musty, warm hallways, and the opportunities that came with it. I know my dad has been proud to call himself a teacher at North, and I am proud to call myself a student at North. So feeling invisible and forgotten in the walls of my second home was very upsetting, especially since I was watching my last year at North get taken away from me. Combining the hybrid groups for seniors would not only make these rough times feel more normal, but it would also make the seniors feel like we are heard and being recognized and congratulated for making it through this odd senior year. Us seniors have already missed out on our senior homecoming week, being able to walk down the halls and the rest of our class on the first day cheering and clapping. And not only that, but I lose more and more hope every day that we won't be able to experience any normal senior year festivities. These are not my dad's exact words, but I know he would love to see many more of his students' faces smiling back at him in his classroom every day. So I hope you seriously consider our propositions and can help to make our last year at North the best it can be despite the circumstances. Thank you.
Caroline, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody who gave public comment in the first opportunity. That will close our first opportunity for public comment. Dr. Adderhold, do you have any comments at this time?
Yes, just one moment. I just need to move Jessica back to attendee. And why I do that, and that move just happened. I know a couple people text me saying that screen looked like other people had been promoted to the panelists. Just so you know, on my screen that never changed, and the board has been the only ones on the panelists unless someone was individually invited. In fact, all the individuals that were referenced that appeared on the screen or were said to have appeared on the screen never moved from attendee on the screen that I had. So my working assumptions, the recording will show true of who was promoted to panelist. So, you know, I'm not sure what happened, but sometimes there's glitches in Zoom. With respect to the two student comments, and I know there was 4 parent comments. I believe they were parent comments. Just late last week, I had a correspondence with Dr. Dauber and Mr. Leppold regarding senior activities second half of the year. We actually are meeting on Thursday to discuss a range of things that impact not only seniors but also juniors. Everything from wash sem to senior trip to junior prom to end of year activities to musicals to we've been discussing athletics, obviously ongoing, as well as graduation ceremonies, and have discussed options for seniors. So that will be a continued conversation in the days ahead. I have asked for numbers to get a sense of what has changed in the numbers recently, because the buildings have those. And so we'll be discussing that and trying to find further ways. But hearing students talk about feeling forgotten and invisible is clearly not the aim or goal of anyone on this panel from the board and the administration. So we're going to have some discussions about how we can help promote and facilitate some of those discussions to change that. As I said, you know, I'm a parent of a recent graduate and parent of the class of 22, 24, 2030, and 2032, as well as the graduating class of 2020. So I see this through a lot of lens as a dad, and I definitely see what has been very difficult for year 2 students going into this year. So for our seniors or juniors, for all our kids, but for our seniors that had half their junior year virtual or a third of their virtual year plus, you know, this particular year, I know it's tremendously difficult, and I appreciate all the efforts our kids are making, and I appreciate your advocacy. So I will convey those messages as well to our principals, our building administration, and our class advisors to see how we can help maybe make some changes going forward. So again, thank you to our students for coming out.
Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. Since our last meeting, our committees have not met, so we have no reports. So we can move ahead now with the voting portion of our agenda. We'll start with the administration. Can I please get a motion on administration items 1 to 4, Tony and Robin? Are there any questions or comments on the administration items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
And Ms. Case.
Yes. We have no curriculum and instruction items on the agenda tonight, so can I please get a motion on the finance items 1 to 5? Louisa and Rachel. Are there any questions or comments on the finance items? Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Mr. Flares,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
and Ms. Kish.
Yes. Could I please get a motion on personnel items 1 through 3 plus the addendum? Robin and Dana, are there any questions or comments on the personnel items? Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Mr. Flares,
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
and Ms. Kish.
Yes. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge 2 retirements that we just voted on. Maria Mingrone, an LA teacher at High School North, is retiring after 33 years with the district. And Cindy Silva, an instructional assistant at Millstone River School, is retiring after 16 years with the district. I want to wish them all the best and thank them for all their hard work. And Mrs. Mingrone, thank you for writing that letter of recommendation for my son to get into college. Are there any liaison reports? Is there any new business? That brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this second opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment and their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. So do we have any comments now?
Yes, there's one individual signed up as Maya Kamath. I'll promote Maya. And
Just while we're waiting, there was no additional written comments.
that's correct. So I'm promoting Maya at this time.
Hello, thank you so much for this opportunity. As a parent of the district, I want to appreciate our community and our neighbors for their support, and all of our teachers, our staff, our Board of Education members, and the administration for all of the efforts they have done this year. To be frank, this year was not perfect for anyone. But again, we're in a pandemic year, and that's obviously been a unique situation that none of us are used to. This year has changed everything for everyone. Whether you chose virtual or hybrid for your children, I'm sure you've seen the amount of effort and thought and effort that was put in this year by the district and the administration and the staff. Again, it wasn't ideal or perfect, but the amount of effort put in is quite transparent if you choose to see it. I'm proud to see 3 new Board of Education members being sworn in today. These members have been great assets to our society before they were even sworn in. I'm also proud of our WWP community that has banded together for the greater good. I'm very grateful to be living here in this town and this district during these difficult times. Parents, please remember to check the pertinent information on the newsletters, and if you feel disconnected, please contact your PTA because we can help you get connected in any way. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you.
That was the only sign up for second opportunity.
All right, so that will close the second opportunity for public comment. Tonight, the board needs to go into closed executive session, so I'm going to read the required statement. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act authorizes Board of Education to meet in executive session under certain circumstances, and whereas the Open Public Meetings Act requires the board to adopt a resolution at a public meeting to go into private session, now therefore be it resolved by the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District Board of Education that it is necessary to meet in executive session to discuss certain items involving personnel matters and HIB matters. Be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public as soon as feasible. The minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Be it further resolved that the board will return to open session to conduct business at the conclusion of the executive session if necessary, but I don't believe that will be necessary. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we will not be coming back into open session. So can I please get a motion to go into closed executive session? Loy and Martin. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. So we're going to log out of this meeting. We have a separate link for that. We'll say goodnight to everybody for now, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
Thank you.